Welcome back. Let's get started with our second lesson of the unit. We're going to learn to translate between math and words. We're going to have quite a bit of notes here to try to know of, and the notes are going to help you in the future knowing how to answer some of these things. Today's date and page number 2 before moving on. Here's your warm-up. I want you to evaluate all 4 expressions for x equaling 9. So that basically means you're going to plug and chug 9 in for every x. Good luck. Here are the answers you should have come up with. 16, 36, 9, and 4. So I rewrote each expression to turn it from algebraic to just a regular expression, showing how I solve them. All right, so take a look at this sign. It's got all the Charlottes, or at least most of the Charlottes in the United States marked. And it's the distance from Charlotte, North Carolina to all the other ones. So it shows in there that Charlotte to North Carolina to Charlotte, Tennessee is 470 miles. So Beth drove C miles from Charlotte, North Carolina towards Charlotte, Tennessee. How many more miles must she drive to reach Charlotte, Tennessee? Well, when you're dealing with this one, you got to look at the words carefully because the words help you know what kind of problem you're looking for. So different actions that you may see is if you see something that says combine or put together, that usually means add. How much more or how much less usually means subtract. Putting together into equal groups, that's usually multiplying, and then separating into equal groups, that's usually dividing. Stuff that you already know. But let's start putting together some examples of how you can read these and be able to figure out how to write your own expressions with mathematical sentences. All right, so take a look at this example. Okay. You don't have to write the whole sentence. You're just going to have to be writing down the bottom part here once we get to there. So it says, Lake Superior is the largest lake in North America, and it actually covers the northern part of Wisconsin, or the border. So here we're going to say that A is going to stand for the area in square miles of the lake. Okay, that's one important piece. The second sentence says Lake Erie has an area of 9,910 square miles. So here we're lucky. They give us exactly what Lake Erie is. So it wants us to write an expression, which means we're not going to have an equal sign, and we're probably going to have a variable and a constant, to show how much larger Lake Superior is than Lake Erie. Now the key here to know what kind of operation we're doing is how much larger. How much larger or how much smaller would usually mean that we're dealing with a subtraction problem. So really all you need to write down, like I put in the brackets, is to find how much larger you're going to subtract. So you have to subtract the area that we do know from an area that's bigger. Now, it did hint to us earlier that Lake Superior is the largest. So if we're going to subtract, we have to put A for Lake Superior first, and then subtract it from Lake Erie. Now, it doesn't tell us we're going to know how to answer it, but at least we set up an expression for how to solve it. Go ahead and copy down what you see in the brackets before moving on. Here's another one. We're going to look at this one where it says, let P represent the number of colored pencils. So P is the number of colored pencils. And those are in a box. If there are 26 boxes on the shelf, that's another important thing, write an algebraic expression to represent the total number. So whenever we're looking at a total of something, that means that we're going to be looking at a multiplication problem. So really we just have to look at the two things we're dealing with, the variable P, which is the number of pencils in a box, and we're going to have to multiply that by the total number of boxes we have, which is 26. So this I want you to copy down. So really we're looking at doing 26 times P. Here's two different ways you can write it. 26 with a P next to it, or 26.P. Again, don't put the X because then it looks like 26XP and it's confusing. You may think you have extra points on a video game. That ain't the truth. Copy that down and then we'll move on. All right, here's one I want you to try on your own. So it says the Big Island of Hawaii is the largest island in with an area of 4,028 miles squared. The next biggest island is Maui. So we're going to let M represent the area of Maui, M for Maui. And you have to write an expression for the difference between the two areas. Difference should be your hint there. Go ahead and write an algebraic expression, and then we will check to see if you had it right in just a second. So if we know that the largest part if the largest part is the big island, we know that that has to be the first thing that we write. So it told us that the big island is 4,028 square miles. So that's going to be our constant. And difference should have told you to subtract. The variable it told us to use for Maui is m. That is what the correct expression should be. If you got that right, give yourself a pat on the back. So half the battle with this lesson is being able to identify how to write expressions. But there's a lot of different ways you can use words to write expressions. And here what I have is the next couple slides are going to be examples of how to write them. So I'm going to want you to put these tables down in your notes. So if you were adding the operation, I put the little plus symbol there. There's a numerical example, 37 plus 28. I have an example of what words you could use. The key words being added, plus, sum, and more than. And then if you had an expression like x plus 28, this is an algebraic expression because we're using a variable. Here you can see we still use the words added, plus, sum, and more than, but I've given you some examples of what it can look like. Write this down before moving on. Here's some examples of subtraction and the words that can go with the subtraction problem. Now, subtraction is important to know where the numbers go in place. Addition, it doesn't matter, but you'll see here the 12 and the 90 are in different places in each problem depending on how it's written. Copy this down and then move on. All right, multiplication. Again, multiplication is like adding. It doesn't really matter what order it's in. So the numbers may be in different orders, but they're all different ways to write it. And I tried to put all the different ways. You'll see it with parentheses of numbers, the X, the little plus symbol, or the little dot. So write this down before moving on. And here's division. This one obviously goes through words that you could use for division. Again, notice that I wrote division as fractions in both algebraic and numerical expressions. Write this down before moving on. All right, so here I'm going to be wanting you to copy down this practice. Using all those tables or writing all those tables are going to be helpful to you. It's going to be a great resource. So using those tables, you probably can figure out if you see the word minus and it says 987 minus 12, you know which way to write that proper expression. This is a numerical expression because there's no variable. In B, you'll see x times 45. Again, your table will help you figure out what times means. Here, this is an algebraic expression because we have the variable x and the constant 45. Write down the answers in your notebook right next to the problems. So basically copy down A, question and answer, and B, question and answer in your notes so you can see how that works. Okay, I have a few problems here I want you to try on your own. These 6 problems, go ahead and write an algebraic or numerical expression with the way the words share to you. Good luck. Here are the answers I hope you had. You can see that I was able to look at my charts and figure out the way the words were put together. This is the way the numbers should be represented. If you got these right, give yourself a high five. You did a great job. Our last practice for this unit, or this lesson, is how to translate the words into sentences. So here are 2 phrases that you're going to need to know. And I got to finish one off. Looks like I didn't put the variable. So if you were looking at these, again, you're going to use your table, and you're going to identify that A is a division problem and B is a multiplication problem. So all you have to do then is write 2 phrases for each expression. Here's what I want you to copy down. Here's 2 ways you could write A for 16 divided by B, 16 divided by B, or the quotient of 16 and B. And for letter B, using those 2 numbers of 75 times 32, There's two ways you can write it. Have these down before moving on. And here are 4 problems that I want you to try on your own, writing 2 phrases for each. Come back when you got it done. And I sloppily wrote down a few examples of my own. You probably used the same words from your table that I did, or you could have used different ones. Again, I'm trying to get you to have practice of looking back at that table you just put the time in writing and putting them to action here. All right, here's your box of thought. Answer these 2 in full sentences, and then move on once you box off your answers. And you're going to move on to the quiz here. 5 questions. Read the directions carefully, answer the best of your ability, and then that's it for today. We'll see you next time.